Hey, what's up? I'm Matt. I recently got a Canon C100. The original one, not the Mark II, the Mark I. Here's why. So I started out with these two cameras, GH5, of course, have it on a cage there, and the Canon 70D. And this was kind of A camera, the GH5, still kind of is in some ways, and B camera, Canon 70D. And as you know, the 70D is kind of sort of prosumer, more of a vlogging camera. And the GH5 is a phenomenal camera. It's kind of expensive, but 4K and the different frame rates that you can get, the high frame rates for slow motion, 422 10-bit, it just gives you all those great codecs. There's so much you can do with the GH5. But what I really wanted to do was get in a situation where I could use the GH5 kind of as camera B/B-roll camera and have an A camera for interviews. So because of all the slow motion capability and the 4K and the 422 10-bit and everything you can do with the GH5, I didn't necessarily need to go out and pay for that, again, for my purposes, in another camera. What I did want to do, however, was in an A camera for interviews, on-camera stuff. I wanted the best image I could get, price a consideration as well. So the original C100 with its AVC HD and everything that comes along with it was exactly what I needed for that purpose. So let's go over some of the pros versus the cons after having a camera for a while and getting to use it. Number one, the controls on the C100 are intuitive. It's easy to understand, it's easy to use, it's all labeled. When you get into the user manual and some of the tutorials online, it's not hard at all to kind of start to use it to best suit you. Even to set some of the custom functions, custom buttons, you can remember those easily. So it's just very easy to use. That's pro number one. Also, ergonomically, it's really good. It fits in the hand. I've got these great big hands, but it fits in there easily for me. See, my hand fits in the handle really nicely. You got this handle right here on the side. That you got the strap, which you can use or not use if you want. And your hand's going to slide in there, and this is adjustable kind of according to the width or girth of your hand, like Brian Regan said. I don't even know what girth means. The toggles on your thumb, the record button on your thumb. Use the offhand for some of the other stuff, the ND filters, the one-shot autofocus. So ergonomically, it's built well and it's not heavy. So on a tripod in a studio like I use it for interview stuff, on-camera stuff, not a big deal. But certainly even if you were out and about, run and gun with it, it's not heavy and it's easy to use. Also, the LCD screen is nice. Anything indoors, it works great. Okay, and I've heard all the other stuff about the other LCD screens being better, but this is certainly good enough, especially indoors. And you can put that waveform monitor on there so you can see it. It gives you the waveform monitor so you can get that exposure exactly like you want it, which is a huge deal to be able to have that on the camera out of the box. Now, on the pro side, the AVC HD codec. Now, we'll get to the con side later, but in terms of file size, you can shoot on SD cards. The AVC HD, the image you get off the camera is fantastic, but you can record all day long. The AVC HD codec is going to really give you those small file sizes. The built-in ND filters are fantastic. If you, me, any photographer, any videographer had our choice, you'd have them on every camera that you use. They are so much of a crutch. You avoid having to put the variable on the end of your lens or switching them out if you don't have the variable. And with this, given its low light capability, a native ISO of 850, It's kind of a necessity when you're out in bright situations, but you'll find yourself using them, and it's just so convenient to have that built-in ND. To be able to use the built-in variable ND, you have up to 6 stops, 3 different levels, ND 1, 2, and 3, 2 stops each of ND, which in an environment like this was pretty bright. It's not direct sunlight. 6ND allows me to keep the ISO at the native at 850, and it does a really good job. Oh, and the Z Finder or external monitor is a must on a bright day like this. Another pro for the camera is the audio quality. Like right now on camera, I'm getting scratch audio with a Sennheiser condenser shotgun mic that's mounted to the camera, but boomed overhead. I don't know if you can see it. It may actually still be out of the shot. Yeah, it's still out of the shot. You can't see it, but boomed just overhead. Have an indoor dialogue microphone boomed in, and it's running in here via XLR, because on the top handle of the C100, you have XLR audio inputs. And the first time that you take this camera out, you shoot some stuff that's getting audio through a shotgun microphone into that XLR input. You're going to put it back in your editor, put the headphones on, and boom, it's going to hit you immediately how much better the audio is recorded internally, already synced with your video, obviously, and that is a huge plus on this camera. Now, the obvious pro with the Canon cinema line, C100, C200, C300, is the image quality. Now, again, you're not shooting 422 internally. You're not shooting 4K. You're not shooting 10-bit with this. It's an 8-bit codec, AVC HD, but still, the image quality when you expose this camera correctly is beautiful. You know, everybody talks about the color science of Canon or whatever that means. I just know it looks good, and I know that it's robust enough that if it's exposed correctly, then in post, you can do what you want to with it when grading it to make it look like you want. So I'm really, really happy with the images that are coming out of this camera. Another pro is that by this time, if you get a C100, most of them anyway have the dual pixel autofocus upgrade. The one that I got did, and it is great. Okay, it works. The autofocus works the way it says, continuous autofocus, and whatever is in the center of your frame, that's great. But also, you can focus manually, which most of us do most of the time anyway, which is manual focus, everything. But if for stuff like this, where I'm solo shot on camera, I can center myself in the screen and go one shot autofocus, click that button, it locks in on me. Another pro, I mentioned the dual card slots. A lot of people make a big deal out of this. I think it's a luxury. It's not necessarily a must-have. And the final pro that I would point out is the price. It's not going to cost you $5,000 to get into the C100 the way it would have if you bought it new several years ago. Like I said, my GH5 was a much more expensive camera. Now, obviously, it's got more features and the high frame rates and the 4K, the 422, and the 10-bit and the slow-mo. So this now, I think you're getting the C100 kind of where it should be in the price range of other cameras. So the price on these things right now is a pro. All right, so flipping it over to some of the cons, the negatives about the camera, which are things that are widely publicized. First, the viewfinder. It's terrible. We're not talking about the LCD. We're talking about the built-in viewfinder. It's terrible. It might as well not be there. If you get the camera, don't even plan on using it. It is not usable. Another con, back over to the AVC HD codec. So file sizes are great, but it isn't 10-bit. 422. It's, the 8-bit, which is 24 megabits per second. So if you don't expose it correctly, then in post, you're going to have some trouble. Now, obviously, a negative is that the LCD screen is not a flippy screen. So you can't go selfie mode and see yourself. You can't really go the full vlog with the C100 because you can't flip it out and see yourself. And if you're going to be on camera like this, like I'm here solo, I've got an external monitor over here so that I can see the shot and everything, because otherwise I couldn't flip the screen around. Another con or negative is no slow motion. You're limited to 24 frames per second, 30 frames per second. Now, it does have a 60i frame rate, and I've played around with it, and the truth is you can shoot some slow-mo video with the 60i frame rate in the C100. You have to drop it into your editor, and when you're using proxy or even not proxy, it's not going to look right. But if you transcode it and then put the frame blending on there in Final Cut Pro, it'll actually give you a slow-mo shot on some things that are moving slowly. It might be presentable if you've exposed it and focused correctly. Things that are moving quickly, though, like a car going by, you're going to see lines. It's just not ever going to look right. It's not really usable. I'm not sure any of it's usable, but you could play with it and see what you get. But for the most part, you're just not going to get any slow-mo. And then the last thing on the negative side that I'll point out is back to the autofocus. So when you have the C100 Mark I with continuous autofocus, the upgrade dual pixel autofocus, you turn that on and it's going to autofocus on everything that is right in the dead center of the screen. So as you're moving, that's what it's going to grab, is whatever's in that little box in the very center. Anything outside of that. So like if your subject is in focus in the middle but moves away, it's going to go out of focus. And that's the only thing. So it's not going to track things throughout the viewfinder or throughout the image. It's only going to be what's in the very center. And that's why, for the most part, I either manual focus with this camera or the one-shot autofocus, where I put something in the center that I want in focus, hit the one-shot autofocus, grab it in focus, and now it's locked in there. ISO 850, 1000, 1250, 1600, 2000, 2500, 3200, 4000, 5000, 6400, 8,000, 10,000, 12,800, 16,000, 20,000, 25,600, all right, 32,000, 40,000, 51,200, 64,000, 80,000, which is as high as it'll go. It's at 10,000 ISO. That's at 20,000 ISO. That's at 20,000 ISO. So if you're thinking about getting the camera, this is my experience with it. The image quality is fantastic. It's really second to none. And you must expose it correctly. If you don't, you could run into some issues in grading. But ask yourself this question: what are you going to use it for? For me, I knew I wanted to use it for interviews, the interview setting indoors with the kind of work that I do, and the on-camera stuff for myself and that kind of thing. So interviews, I'm primarily in an indoor setting for the most part, where I'm going to control the lighting completely and make sure I've got this exposure dialed in exactly where I want it, everything focused where you want it. And I just wanted this camera for that purpose, for that image quality, those skin tones, and the way that Canon cinema line spits out the image. I just knew that I wanted that. And also for its low light capabilities. So any indoor shooting, documentary style stuff, yes, the interview things, but also B-roll stuff where I'm indoors in a low light situation, it's better in low light, the C100 is, than the GH5 that I had. And so I'm going to be shooting a lot of slow-mo stuff with the GH5. This gives me a camera that operates at an entirely different level in low light than the previous cameras that I had. And then the last thing you would consider is what's your budget. Now, obviously, if you have an extra $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 laying around, you might go get the C200. Why not? You're gonna get the slow-mo, the 4K, all those things with it. But right now, you can go online and get a used C100 that is in really good condition. It's gonna work perfectly for sometimes less than $2,000. All right, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed that. If you have questions, opinions, hit me up, let me know. I'm always looking for answers as well, trying to learn from you and not always vice versa. And do me a favor, hit subscribe over there and click that bell because I have new stuff coming out as well. And I'd love to hear your suggestions and your feedback, so let me know about it. Hit me up on Twitter and Instagram. I am Radio Wyatt. All right, thanks for watching. See ya.